Alright, so I'm back with another auction win. Um, these are some Western comics that I won. Um, let's dive in. Let's see what we got. This one was a freebie. This is Western Roundup from Dell. Features some TV show and movie cowboys. Uh, Dell number 8, Western Roundup number 8. It's got Rex Allen, Gene Autry, Roy Rogers, Bill Elliott, and Johnny Mac Brown. Of course, I've heard of Roy Rogers and Gene Autry, Rex Allen, Bill Elliott, but I've never heard of Johnny Mac Brown, so I may look him up just to be more familiar with him. This here, I've never seen before. This is Western Outlaws number 62 from Marvel Comics. I think this is like 1955, 56. The reason I got it was there is this character right here that looks like Ghost Rider, El Sombro, the Ghost of Chapel Hill. I mean, he looks exactly like Ghost Rider. And I can find no information on this character whatsoever, so I'm going to have to open this book and read it. Just so I can see the story. I've checked my Ghost Rider omnibuses and different things like that, and there's no mention of this character at all. I don't know if it was John Buscema or Joe Maneely who drew this character, but I will have to crack this open and read the story to find out. And then I'll probably write something about it, put it online so there's info about them. But thought it was really interesting. So apparently this particular comic ran from 54 to 57, and it was just called Western Outlaws, and then they changed the name to End Sheriffs, and then the series continued. And I think when it started as Western Outlaws, it was under the Atlas company, and before they changed over to Marvel. And then this next one wasn't particularly going after it or looking for it, but for the price this was, I had to jump on it. This is Lobo number 1 from Dell. This is the first black character who mainstreams his own title. This only lasted 2 issues. So the story of this is Lobo is a Buffalo soldier in the Union Army. He's never given a name, and they are attacked by Confederate soldiers, and everyone is killed except for Lobo. He gets knocked out or something, and then Union soldiers show up and um, chase the Confederates away or kill them or whatever it is, and he decides to try to find some honest work. So he's out of the army. He goes and becomes a cowboy. And one day, while herding some cattle back, him and his co-workers were ambushed, and half of them were killed. And it was him and 2 of his co-workers were not. The 2 co-workers, one was named Ace. I can't remember the other one's name. They tried to pin it on Lobo, or on this guy, and he bested them and tied them up and rode away. And then later they got out or something. They went to the sheriff and told the sheriff that it was this lone wolf Lobo guy that robbed the boss's money and the cattle. And the wanted poster had his face on it and the name Lobo on it, and that's how he got his name. While on the run, Lobo had saved a older prospector that was drowning, and that guy had told him that he was also running from the law for a crime he didn't commit, and he took up prospecting to try to make money. And as a thank you, he handed Lobo a handful of gold coins, and the gold coins just happened to have a wolf's head on them. And and that kind of became his calling card, kind of like the Lone Ranger and the Silver Bullet, and or was going to be his calling card, I guess. If the series continued, he'd leave a gold coin behind or something. And Lobo went back and took out his two former coworkers um, and their boss, Ray Carson. And then he was after the guy who framed him originally, or was part of it. I guess I didn't read it. I read the synopsis of it. And that guy had already died, so he couldn't clear his name. So he went back to see the prospector, and the prospector was basically on his deathbed, and told Lobo the only way you can kind of clear your name is to keep doing good deeds, and the people will know that you're not bad, and you know, basically become like a Lone Ranger type character, where you just go from like town to town, righting wrongs. And that was pretty much it on issue 1. Issue 2, it was he fought a guy called the King of the West or something. The guy had like a castle. He was trying to run townspeople out so he could take over all their land. Um, and it's just basically going to become a villain of the week or villain of the month story where he just kind of travels from place to place and different things pop up. Um, but the series only lasted 2 issues. Out of issue 1, 200,000 were printed. Only 10 to 15,000 were sold, reportedly sold. So this makes this book pretty rare, I guess. I don't know. I didn't look at the census. I don't know how many are on the census or anything like that. But I imagine the other ones that didn't sold were destroyed. And so you had those 10 to 15,000. Those 10 to 15,000. I don't know how many survived. This one's like a mid grade. It's all there. It's just it's got a spine roll. But it's there. I mean, it could probably be cleaned and pressed maybe and get that spine roll taken out. If I want to go that far with it, I don't think I'm going to, but I'm just going to leave it in this for now. I will change the bag out to a better bag. But yeah, for the price I got this for, I mean, it was crazy not to jump on it and get it. So I'm adding this to the collection. And then, like I said, I'm going to follow up with I'm going to read the story in here and see what El Sombro is all about. That was pretty interesting. This book, it's got some damage. It's got like a hole right there and right there. It's got a little chunk missing out of the bottom. It also has spine roll. Spine's a little beat up, so I gotta be really careful with this one. Taking this out and actually reading it. I'm gonna try to find it online somewhere so I don't have to, but if I can, I will open this up, read it, and write about the character. But yeah, this too, like for the price I got this for, it was crazy not to grab it. The guy also had a Lobo #2, and I should have jumped on that as well, but I didn't. And that went for nothing as well. That way I'd had the complete set, but I'm happy with these two. I usually don't get into westerns. Just not my thing. But I guess as I'm getting older, I'm just maybe it's with the current comics. I'm just not as excited about reading current comics. So I'm kind of branching off into horror and western and romance and things like that I normally didn't, and war. Normally didn't branch off into. Mainly kept it superhero and sci-fi kind of comics, but finding a lot of interesting things in these older books. Covers, some really great covers, and then some great artwork by creators that I normally, wouldn't pick up because in the superhero books they're too expensive, but you can get these pretty cheap. I guess I will say I was back in a group early on. I want to say like 2001, 2002 on eBay. And was a comic book group on the eBay boards that's no longer there anymore. They did away with those. But went there, met a couple cool guys. One guy that headed the group, he and some of you might have heard of him. He had laminated key comics. So basically, he took key comic books that were like brittle or falling apart already. Um, he would carefully cut them into individual pages and then laminate each individual page and then put them in a binder. Um, his thought process was that uh, he was a professor at a college. He had a student unalive themselves, and that kind of shook him, I guess. And he started getting back into comics. And he said he read comics as a kid and he got away from it. They started getting back into comics, and then he realized that a lot of these books are not going to be around due to deterioration and things like that. Um, and he set out to do, I think it was 100, in his opinion, the 100 most important comics. And his name is John. I don't remember his last name, but the collection went by the Q collection. Um, and he started getting books, low grade books. He had donations. He had a whole team of advisors, international advisors, and he created this like booklet about the whole project and everything. I should have kept it, but he sent me one when I went to go see Stan Lee, um, and I probably should have kept it or at least photographed it, the inside, because I gave it to Stan Lee, and Stan Lee was like, "Oh, thank you." He's excited, kind of like looking at it, interested in it, and for people who know and have been, Stan Lee had a handler. I think he just got indicted, uh, and that guy, they basically, when people were giving Stan Lee gifts, he had a trash can at the end of the table, and as you moved the line and moved Stan Lee, I mean, you had barely any time to talk to Stan Lee. It was like signature done, boom, move, 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 and he just scooped it, took his hand and just scooped it all into the trash can, and I just thought, is that stuff make it? I mean, obviously Stan's not gonna take all that stuff back. I mean, he probably had like a trash can was probably full, but who got it? Did it go in the trash? Did it go to him and he sorted through it and got rid of what he didn't want and he kept what he did? And it was just a whole. Once I saw that, I was like, I should have just kept the damn book. But yeah, the Q collection. So the the focus was supposed to be to donate it to a museum. And that way the books would live on, and kind of this guy John would live on through these books and this donation. And that might have been what motivated him. He didn't have children, and I think maybe this was his way of having a legacy, um, with this collection. But that was the promise, and that was what was supposed to happen with everything. And from what I gather and what I understand, once the eBay thing, the boards had kind of disappeared and eBay did away with it, there was no way of moving anybody to a new platform. I think there might have been an attempt at Facebook, but it didn't really transfer everybody over, um, and it kind of just fizzled out and died. And I saw later, I'm talking like probably about maybe 5, maybe even 8 years ago, that the collection had been parted out and sold on Heritage. So the laminated pages, he had a Captain America one, I think he had an Action one, a Wonder Woman one, a Sensation Comics first appearance Wonder Woman, Batman. He had 100 really good key comics, and apparently they got parted out, and sold. Now I don't know if partial of the collection got sold or the whole thing got sold or was parted out amongst different places. I didn't keep track of it that intently to find out where it all went, but maybe I should. Um, because that the promise was if you donate it, if you're part of the board and all that stuff, it was going to a museum. But no museum would take it because of the laminated pages, which is crazy to me because you could at least leave it in the library and people could flip through it, still read the books and see everything. A lot of people gave him a lot of slack online because he was destroying comics by laminating them and cutting them up, and I get that, but like he was saying, what made him think about it was he had a comic that was basically falling apart. It was probably severe Marvel chipping or something and brittle. So if the book's already brittle and falling apart, I don't see a problem with it because you're preserving something. The stuff he was using was like museum grade UV protected lamination. Um, yeah, the book probably wouldn't be here in 10, 20 years anyway because it would fall apart in your hands. So I didn't see a problem with that that way, but kind of like where the collection ended up going and didn't go nowhere and it was supposed to be donated and then all of a sudden it got sold. Just I don't know. Maybe gave up on it. Um, but I say all that to say like with these Western comics, there was a guy named Ed Segar. Uh, he said he pronounced his name cigar like cigar, so I'm assuming it was Segar. Uh, and Ed was on the boards like every day, and he was a big Western collector. It's all he collected was Western comics, and he had a pretty huge collection of Western comics. And at the time, I was telling him, man, like you should privately. I said you should write a book. Like there's no book on Western comic books at the time. There was science fiction, horror, superheroes, crime, romance, but there was no book about the history of Western comics. And it was such a short span, you know. And like I say, he had a huge collection. He probably could have covered a lot of things and um, delved into a lot of the history of Western comics and the characters that are in there. And he was very knowledgeable. Um, and then it was like, and you can almost feel it. Like Ed passed away. His wife came on to let us know that he had passed away, and it was like ever since that day, the group wasn't. I don't know. It was like the group wasn't the same, um, and it was not funny, but ironic. The day Ed passed was on a Wednesday, and at the comic book store, I went up to the comic book store to pick up my books. Dynamite's Lone Ranger new issue had come out, and the cover was the Lone Ranger on a horse by John Cassidy or Cassidy. There's a Lone Ranger on a horse with a sunset behind him. It was like he was reared up on the horse, and it was almost like in a way it was weird. It was like I felt it's crazy to say, but it was like it was Ed's way of saying goodbye. Like came out on the day he died. It was the Lone Ranger. That was his favorite character. Reared up, sunset behind him. And I think it was in a silhouette. Um, I posted on the group too. I was like, man, this is crazy. Um, but yeah, it was like the group kind of never was the same after that. And then after that, eBay, I think it was like within a year, eBay anyway was knocking the groups off. I went on still when they changed the format, and then let's eventually just everything was gone. All the content, all the stories, all the history that people were putting on there. It's really a shame. It was all just wiped and gone. Um, and I tried to preserve some of it. I created my own page and started copying all the chats and all the, like the screenshots and stuff. Started moving them over, and then I lost that as well. So before I can even get it to a spot where I can move everything over and start printing it, so I'd have it like imprint it. Where I guess the server or whatever on the site I had went down, and that was the end of that. So all that was lost. So all these people that had posted and had stories and history and information and all that stuff, it was all gone. Uh, which is it's a shame because there was a lot of really good stuff. That's where I really started delving more into Legion was the eBay um, chat boards because there was one guy on there in particular that was really it's a a big, huge Legion fan, and that's where I started like really looking at the different characters, and then um, from his recommendations, and then when he would post his books that he bought, um, and I would see a lot of a lot of cool characters, and I'm like, oh, I want to find out more about that person or this character or whatever, and start getting more into the lore of the Legion, and then I started buying the the ECR or the DC archives books that are behind me. Start in the Marvel ones. So I started getting into all those so I can read the older stories. So at least I would be able to read them, and then later on purchase them. As I got older. But it was a good board. I don't know about these Western comics. Made me think about Ed. Um, I think about Ed a lot. I mean, as time goes on, people you meet and in this hobby. Um, it's just weird. Like I never met him in person, but we talked, online and stuff like a lot of people do on here, and a lot of people don't know each other on YouTube, but we're all friendly with each other, or we speak through Instagram or whatever. Um, and just seeing these Western books made me think of, especially this that El Sombra, because he probably would have known. I could have hit him up and been like, "Hey, who's this El Sombra character?" And he probably would have gave me a whole synopsis of the story and who drew it and who wrote it, and probably a screenshot or two from the comic, because I'm sure he had it. I don't know what happened with his collection once he passed. I think his instructions to his wife was to sell it to a comic book store that he had frequented. Um, but I think what hit us most with that was nobody knew. He kept it to himself, and then his wife came on and let us know that day. But kind of think that one's for Ed. Uh, but I think that's it. Got to get to work. Actually, I'm like should have been there an hour ago. Uh, I'm gonna be signing off, and I will see you guys next time. Thanks.